Okay, Boker Tov. Today's daf is daf Tzadi Chet. Zach v'yashar. Okay, Zach v'yashar. Anyway, we pick up we're a little bit into it. We pick up with b'masni satana. The line starts. It's like after the line that begins with the asterisk, about 10 lines down. Mashlamim, 1 line lower. B'masni satana. So basically, the question was, how do we know this halacha that when a chatos touches something and it gets some of the taste gets absorbed, that the new thing takes on the status of the chatos? As we said, it's sort of a principle that is going to have broad applications for kashrus issues. It's only in the Torah said by a chatos and a mincha. So how do we know to apply it more broadly to other korbanot? And the Gemara quoted this from Shmuel, what seems to be a breita, that based on the pasuk of Zota Torah level aminchat. That we learn things from each one of those korbanot, and the Zot Torah allows us to apply it to all the korbanot. And what we learn from Chatat is this halacha about if things get absorbed. We learn fascinating things about other things. Particularly, we pointed out yesterday about the whole ola that we learned that you use a kli, a shechita knife, maybe even a kli sharet, and bringing in the whole akedas Yitzchak as part of the story of the ola. Was it from Yitzchak? Was it from the ram? And so on. Anyway, but that we learn out important halachot from each one of those korbanot to apply across the board. And from Chatat, we learn on our halacha. So now the Gemara continues with the following. B'masni satana, a breita we taught, Mishmeid Rabbi Akiva, in the name of Rabbi Akiva, that actually we learn out the idea of absorption and taking on the status to other korbanot, not from Chatas, but from mincha, because the Torah says it by both. So mincha, ma mincha, again, going to the pasuk of Zot Torah lo lav mincha. Ma mincha miskadeshes bebalua, the same way mincha, when something absorbs, the mincha takes on its status. Avko miskadeshes bebalua. So now you apply it to other korbanot as well, as opposed to learning from mincha that it's eaten by male kohanim, which really there was only one thing to apply it to, which because everything it says that's eaten by male kohanim, it says it explicitly. So yesterday we learned out from mincha that applies to the shlamei tzibur. So, and there was another source of that idea that it applied to shlamei tzibur from Korach. So here it says, let's learn that out from Korach, the idea of male kohanim for shlamei tzibur. For mincha, we're going to learn out our halacha. For mincha, we're going to learn out this halacha that it's something that absorbs it. This, it takes on that status. Okay, so now we can learn it either from mincha or from chatas. And now the Gemara is going to say the following: the itzrich l'michtav chat, the itzrich l'michtav mincha, the itzrich l'michtav chatas.
What pasuk tells you that it's miskadesh b'valua mincha?
It's I'd have to look it up, but it's right there in Sav. Go ahead, go ahead and check. Okay. So the Gemara says v'itzrich l'michtav mincha v'itzrich l'michtav chatas, and it had to say both. Okay, you could have said maybe now chatas is free to teach you something else, but the Gemara is actually saying let's embrace both of these breitas. Let's embrace the idea that you learn it out from chatas, from Zot Torah, and you learn it out from mincha Zot Torah. And now why? And you need both. Why do you need both? The Yashminun mincha had just said mincha. Okay, maybe it applies to a mincha because it's like soft, so it gets absorbed. So maybe
meaning at the earlier stage, not at a later stage. Right,
not after it's baked. That's true. But when it's just the flour and the oil, avochatas say malo, but avochatas maybe not. Okay, maybe the thing. I'm just realizing I assumed what it meant was that the thing that is the A that's transferring into B, A is soft, but it might actually be referring to that fact that B is softer and it's easier to absorb. How do they translate it there, David? I'm sorry. I'm always asking you to translate it, and your head is somewhere else. Anyway, it's not exactly clear to me whether they mean whether the receiving thing is soft or I did mivla.
Yeah, A
is able to absorb into B because A is soft. Right. Is I think what the grammar is. But if you think about it, it's also that B is very easy. If B is soft, it makes it easier for it to absorb things that are put into it, right? Okay, if you put something into even a baked bread, and certainly just flour and oil, it'll absorb. If the B is the mincha, it'll absorb much easier than a chatos will absorb. Okay, anyway, there maybe it's true.
I'll give you these.
Yeah.
The line it says. Regarding the mincha, that foods, then this is their own addition, that foods which absorb it become holy.
because it is soft. Where do they get to the soft part? Okay, whatever. It's all right. Anyway, the yeshmin and chatos. Now, if you said chatos, mishum de courier.
Wait, I'm sorry, but why would you?
So therefore, avochatos ain't malo. But I would say maybe this halacha doesn't apply to a chatos.
Nice soft piece of meat.
Okay, but first of all, but in a case where it's not as absorbent, or where the thing coming from it, right, is not, if you just touch the meat might have to be hot. Just touching meat normally doesn't transfer. So the thing coming from it and the thing absorbing into it, the transfer is not as easy. So since the transfer is not as easy, and maybe therefore even if stuff transfer, it doesn't transfer as deeply or as much, maybe these halachot would not apply. So maybe halachot would only apply to nice soft things like a mincha. Chatos, by chatos, say malo. Yes, and chatos. If it just told me by chatos, mishum de courier. That's because the chatos penetrates deeply in. Again,
that's also what we're saying then.
Yeah, I know. I don't exactly understand it. I thought kari could. I think Rashi says here kari means penetrates in, but I think chatas kari also can mean like that it adheres better. But if somehow I don't know the stuff is. Yeah, I don't know. Aval milchei malo tzricha. So there you have to tell me both. Okay, yes, you found it. Where are we?
Okay, so apparently the assumption is that the mincha is being touched by a similar type of substance, such as this permitted wafer, which would likely be placed in its proximity to it. Accordingly, since it is soft, it absorbs. Means that since the permitted wafer is soft, it deeply absorbs oil from the mincha. And is therefore
right, so it's reading it that it is talking about the thing that is receiving it is soft and therefore absorbs.
But then it's over the explanation of Malbim, because it is soft, there is a stronger fusion of the forbidden and permitted substance, so that perhaps the combination principle applies only to such strong fusion. All
right, fine. Anyway, but it seems like they're translating this as because mincha is soft, it allows it to absorb better. What?
So how's that? It's okay. So, but I'm sorry. So the chat's next to another piece of chat that somehow it's different, which I'm still
sure. You don't understand that? I totally understand that. If you've got a mincha and if you drop, let's say you have some chazer juices around, right? And you dropped them on one hand, you dropped them on a wafer. Another hand, you dropped them on a cooked piece of chicken. Okay, I would definitely think that it's a bigger problem going into the wafer than it goes into the cooked piece of chicken. No, yeah, I mean, if it's raw, I hear your point. Maybe, but even if it's raw, you're right. Then presumably it would be pretty absorbent, right? I guess I'm assuming that it's cooked. Okay. Anyway, all right. So it needed both to tell me that even if that even though in some cases the absorption is easier or deeper or whatever, it really doesn't matter as long as there's absorption. It's an issue. Okay. Tzricha. Now, chatas. Ma chatas ein haba. Now this gets back now to the Breita that was taught of Rabbi Akiva, because what the Gemara now said is we're going to use both mincha and chatas to tell me this halacha of absorption, and it sort of tells me that even though in one case is in the absorption might be better or deeper in one case than the other, it doesn't matter. But the Breita itself doesn't learn absorption from chatas. The Breita itself learns the absorption rule from mincha and learns something else from chatas. So let's see what this Breita learns from chatas. Chatas. Ma chatas ein haba min achulin ubiyom ubiyado hayaminit. So same way chatas you can only bring from stuff that is not already sanctified. Obviously, doesn't mean just not sanctified for another korban, because of course, how can something be two korbanot? But as we'll see, it basically means, like an example would be like use your Meiser Sheni money to bring a chatas. You're not allowed to do that. Okay, it has to be stuff that's totally neutral types of stuff. Okay, so therefore we'll see where we learn it from in a minute. Okay, ubiyom, and you can only bring it in the day because it says by on Yom Kippur. It speaks about bringing it. It says by Yom. Of course, the Gemara is going to say that we learn out that from another pasuk in general by korbanot. Ubiyado yaminit. You have to use your right hand when you do the avoda because it speaks about the kohen and etzba'o, the kohen and his finger. And the Gemara said earlier, based on a pasuk, I think by Mitzvah, if I remember correctly, that every time it uses both the word kohen and finger, we know it means right hand. So we know these three things by chatos. Okay. So this is what we learn from chatas. We learned the absorption rule from mincha according to this Breita, and from chatas we learned these three halachot to all korbanot. Now, chatas minala, and how do you know the chatas is?
Well, I'm sorry, wait, but kachim. But some people say a vlad korban is like kodesh. That means something can come from kodesh.
No, that doesn't mean. It means like you can't fulfill your obligation. It doesn't mean that something can't derive kedusha by being born from it. It means that you can't bring a korban and fulfill your obligation from something that already has some sanctified status. Okay, v'chatas minal, and where do you know this halacha from chatas? Amar Rav Chizda Amar Kra, the verse says, "V'kriv Aaron es parachatas asher lo by Yom Kippur." Okay, asher lo, it's his. Mishalov lo mishal tzibur. don't use your communal funds to buy your korbanot for you, okay? Because I'm a kohen gadol. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, you know. You're representing the tzibur, but this korban is not the tzibur's korban that you are bringing. This is your personal one. Yes, you're obligated, but it's your personal one, so it has to come from your own funds. Below misho maaser, and it has to be fully yours, not like meiser sheni money. That would be the most clear example of what this halacha is needed to tell you. Don't use meiser sheni money to go ahead and to satisfy your korban obligation. This becomes an interesting question, like, you know, in terms of using meiser money or tzedakah meiser money to satisfy some other mitzvah obligation. Partly that has to do with how much do we sort of, you know, model maaser after, you know, after like the grain maaser, and specifically after maaser sheni as opposed to maaser ani and so on. What is the function of the whole idea of meiser? Is it a tzedakah type of a thing in terms of your obligations to the poor? Is it more of a mitzvah type of thing, you know, in terms of dedicating sort of like, you know, sort of kol asher titein li aser asrenu, recognizing that it comes from God, so giving it back to some you know, godly purpose. Anyway, but it is an interesting issue that this plays in some discussions about use of meiser money. Anyway, bayom. Now the Gemara says, okay, fine, we get that that's a halacha you learn from chatas, that it has to come from completely non-sanctified funds. But this idea that it's a daytime, mibiyom savaso nafka, you don't need that from chatas. It says that this is the, you know, that these are the laws that God commanded Moshe to bring their korbanot on the day God commanded, B'yom Tzavato. And from that, by Yom Tzavato, we learn that all korbanot can only be brought during the day. Okay, so the Gemara says, fine, kidin aspa. All right, when we said that we learn day from chatas, that's just thrown in. You're right. Day we learn from a more general pasuk. Piyado Yamini is now this idea that you have to go use your right hand by korbanot. What do you mean we learn it from chatas? We learn it from Rabbi Bar Chana. If it says etzba, now the key word letter here is the word vav. If it says etzba and kohen, it's only right. Well, it only says etzba and kohen primarily by chatas, and then you would have to learn it from chatas. But here we're understanding the vav to mean or. Anytime it says, like Mitzorah or something? Right, and exactly. Anytime it says etzba or kohen, it's right hand. So if that's true, by every korban it says kohen. So you don't need to learn it from chatas. So fine, if etzba or kohen is enough to learn right hand. So again, kedin aspa. We just threw in the right hand. You know, that was just for fun. Okay, we just threw it in as extra. The real thing we learned from chatas is that it doesn't come from meiser money. The idea of day and right hand, that we learn from other places. Okay, the e-by say, or if you want, I could say, no, we really do learn right hand from here. Sarvalak Reb Shimon, he goes like Reb Shimon. To Amar, etzba lo baikuna. If the pasuk says etzba, you don't need right hand. It doesn't have to say the word kohen. Kahuna, if the pasuk says the kohen does it, by etzba, but that does not imply right hand. Okay, if you want the Torah to imply right hand, it has to use the word etzba. The word kohen by itself does not do the job. And therefore, there are plenty of korbanot that it says kohen and it doesn't say etzba, because it's only the chatas that you use the finger. Okay, so according to this, you need to learn from chatas the idea of right hand. Okay, so according to this brighter from mincha we learn the principle of absorption, and from chatas, the Gemara says we learn it both from chatas and mincha. But this brighter emphasizes from chatas we learn the halacha, it doesn't come from meiser money, and you do it in the day, although that we learn elsewhere, and right hand, although that we might learn from elsewhere as well. Or no, maybe we actually have to learn that from chatas. Okay. Asham, now this Breita continues. Again, this Breita learns different things than what we taught yesterday from each one of these. Okay, so from yesterday, you might remember, as Michael remembers, that we learned from Asham this whole principle that since it's a male korban, the fetus of an Asham doesn't become sanctified. Because guess what? It doesn't have a fetus. Okay, so, and therefore we learned a more general principle about fetus of korbanot. This learns something else, Asham. Ma'asham atzmosav mutarim. The same way in asham, you can go ahead and take the bones and, you know, make the bones into, you know, some type of use it to make some type of a, you know, a cup, a dish, or whatever you want to do, some bone china. Okay. Afkol atzmosav mutarim. It applies to all korbanot. All now, of course, the question is, how do we know it by asham? So I said, well, you just know it implicitly, because since there's no nosar that applies to bones, because nosar only applies to meat. So therefore, and once the chatas is given to the kohen, they eat the meat. The bones, is it nosar? So of course they can use their bones for everything.
Okay, you can't do that for Pesach.
Okay,
right?
So well, yes, that's true. Okay, so but if you know it logically, why do you need to apply it from asham to other things? Just know it logically by everything. So the answer is the one korban you wouldn't know it by would be ola. Because Ola, nothing is, well, the skin is given to the Kohanim. But other than the skin, it's not basically given to the Kohanim. And basically you burn the bones. You might not have to if you separated them, but whatever. So therefore, from Asham, we apply to Ola that guess what? Even by Ola, if you separate the bones, remember we had a whole discussion before about when they're separate or not separate, you are actually allowed, that's a pretty shocking halacha. They're actually allowed to take the bones from an Ola and go ahead and use it after the Kohen, and the Kohen can use it for its purposes. Now, Rashi still asks, okay, but why do you learn from Asham? If it's logical, if it starts from a logical position, you could learn it from any of the korbanot that are eaten. And one answer is, well, Einachinami maybe. And the other is, by Asham, there's an extra pasuk that says, Lo yihiyeh. So maybe it's not totally logical. Maybe the extra Lo yihiyeh should be the Kohen's, tells us this halacha by an Asham, and then allows us to apply it.
As long as we're saying this, we're not saying it just by animal, as in mammal sacrifices. It'd also be the same for a bird, essentially, right?
Yeah, except, I don't see why not. Yeah. Okay. I'm a Rava. Pshitali, Rava says, it's obvious to me, Dam chatas lamata, v'dam ola lamala. You have a garment. Now remember, all this halacha of absorption applies to all korbanot. There's a question about, about transferring the status. And cooking, in terms of the pot, applies to all korbanot, although there's a question about kachim kalim. But the one thing that applies only to the chatos is the blood, right? If the blood gets absorbed, and then you have to launder it. So Rava says, here's my scenario. First, a splash, or, you can imagine this happening. Kohanim, there's blood flying all over the place. First a splash of Ola blood hits the garment. Then a splash of Chatas blood hits on top. So if the Chatas blood hits on top at the exact same spot, the assumption is it hit in a way that it's not getting absorbed into the material. It's resting on top of the garment, but it's not absorbed into the material. So that's the question.
I find that a little bit tough.
All right, whatever. Just go with it. Dam chatas lamata v'dam ola lamala. Ton kivus. Dam chatas. It's obvious to me if the chatas came first and then the ola ton kivus. You have to launder it. The chatas came first. What do I care about the ola blood afterwards? Boy, Rava. But here's my question. Dam ola lamata. First the ola hits the garment. The dam chatas lamala, and then the chatas. Mahu. What's the halacha? Mishum nogeahu. Is it because the blood is touching the garment? V'han nogea. It's touching even though it's not absorbed. Oh, mishum baluahu. Is it because it got absorbed into the garment? V'han v'halo balat. It got absorbed. Pasha, then he concluded, then he came to a resolution, the ain't ton kivus, it doesn't. I love it. When it says he concluded, no text, no logic, he says, yeah, it makes sense, it doesn't. Of course, you understand why he's saying that. If the ritual was to wave it over your head 3 times, okay, then you would say, okay, who knows? Is it because it's absorbed or because it touched? But if the ritual is to launder it, then presumably it's because it got absorbed. And without absorption, it doesn't make sense to have a ritual to launder it. Okay, you wipe it off the surface maybe, but the ritual of laundering, the same way before we had the idea by the pot, right? We had this whole question about was it because of absorption or was it because of cooking? How much if you wanted to kosher it another way, right? If the ritual is about, in the case of the pot, getting the taste out, and that's why by a cheres you break it and you don't do the scalding, so presumably that means that it's rooted in an idea of absorbing in the walls of the pot. Here too, if the ritual is about laundering, presumably it's because of an idea of absorbing into the garment.
Just
okay?
touching would not get absorbed.
We're dealing in a scenario where we're going to assume that it touched, because it's touching and it's riding on top of a spot that's already crusted with blood from the Ola, then this is going to just ride on top without getting absorbed. Okay, you have to just assume that that's the scenario. I'm a Rava. Now Rava has another question, and this is not really about, yes?
It's an aside, but did they ever discuss that the person who's had the blood spilled is responsible for doing the laundry, or
that's a question.
Send it to the laundry?
Well, they didn't just send it because it had to take place in the Beis HaMikdash. Right. The assumption is it's all communal expenses here. It's not like we start charging you for
some other Cohen.
Exactly, because it's all done in the Beis HaMikdash. It's not just I think it would be another interesting question that let's say Stama Kohen was being irresponsible and he got dirt, or there he was chomping away at his meat, and he got the grease on his big day kahuna, which is not this ritual. It's just we got to clean it. Maybe is at his expense. That's an interesting question.
Just understand.
Okay. Yeah.
We said it only applies to Chata. we also have like that pasuk Torah Olamicha Lachata.
For some reason, we chose not to learn that.
So is it sort of that, like, we will apply generally unless there's like a specific pasuk, Torah Chatat? Maybe that's why
I don't know, because we do learn from Chatas. So why do we learn absorption from Chatas and not the blood thing?
Yeah.
My guess would be because the blood of a Chatas we know is powerful elsewhere, and this principle, also absorption, also exists by a mincha, and it's really just a question about if something is mixed in, it takes on the status and so on. A particular ritual around the blood of a Chatas, we know the power of blood of a Chatas. You bring it inside, it affects it, whatever. So, but somehow Chazal just been guided by Svara, which things should generalize and which not. Okay, we don't have a pasuk that's being quoted. Amar Rav, pshitali, it's obvious to me. Damo b'gadol chotzetz, v'im tabachu eino chotzetz. Okay, now that we're talking about blood on your garments, let's talk about another case of blood on your garments. If you have blood on your garments and you want to go ahead and put your garment in the mikvah because it became tamei, not because of the blood, for whatever, touched an avela or whatever, okay, then the blood is a chatzitza because it's getting in the way of the water touching the garment. But if you're a butcher and blood stains on your garment is normal and you don't go to an effort to remove them in general, then it's considered eino makpid, you don't care, and it's not a chatzitza. Revava b'gadol chotzetz. If you've got like grease on your garment, that's a chatzitza. The mocher revavu, if you're somebody who sells greasy stuff, and it's common that there are grease stains on your garment, you're like a short order cook or whatever. So then eino chotzetz. It's not a problem. Okay, good. That's a lead up to the question. Bye, Rabbi. Here's my question. Dam v'revava b'gadol mahu. Let's say you got both a grease stain and a blood stain. So the Gemara says, I don't understand the question. Im tabachu, if he's a butcher, typically mishum revav, fine, the blood isn't the problem, but the grease stain is the problem. Im mocher revavu, and if he's a short order cook, typically mishum dam, the blood at least. So if this grease isn't the problem, but the blood is. So what exactly is your question, Rava? No, lo tzricha, you need it in the following case. David Havaha. Okay, this guy is both a butcher and a short order cook. Makes sense. You got your butcher sort of thing in the back. You're chopping up your meat and you're getting blood flying around. And then you're also going ahead. I'm translating Mocher Revav as short order cook, somebody who deals with grease. Okay, so you got both operations going, and you got both spots on your garment. Do we ignore them both? What do you say? One type of stains is fine, okay, but two different types of stains just makes me look like a slob. Having blood on my garments, people understand I'm a butcher. Having some grease stains, people understand I'm a short order cook. Having blood and grease stains, people think I'm a slob, and therefore that I'm mocked on. Or do we say
you have two jobs?
A tarki nami lo kapi. No, people will understand. I got two jobs, right? It's a hard economy out there. Take it, we don't know the answer. Okay, so Gemara leaves it as that, makes it seem fundamentally a psychological thing. I would have suggested that Rava's question is more similar to his previous question, which is the following. Let's say I've got a blood stain on here, okay? And let's say I'm a butcher. I don't sell grease, okay? I got a blood stain. The blood stain isn't the problem. And now I've got a grease stain on top of the blood stain. But the grease is just sitting there. It's sort of like his previous question. It's not absorbed in the garment. It's just sitting there. How much is that a chatzitza? I'll give you an example about, we have this in halachos. Let's say I've got a cast on my arm. So I'm not makbid, the cast isn't a chatzitza. Let's say on top of the cast, I've got some writing on top of the cast, or I've got some piece of dirt has encrusted itself on top of the cast. Do I have to worry about a chatzitza on something that isn't my body? The thing itself isn't a chatzitza. Let's say I've got some dirt encrusted on the cast. Do I have to clean the cast? Is the cast now treated like my body and there can't be a chatzitza on the cast? What? I'm going to the mikvah. A woman's going to the mikvah. She's got a cast. And on top of her cast, she's got some crud encrusted on it. Okay? Is that okay? We say, look, since the crud isn't on your body, it's just on the cast isn't a chatzitza, no problem. Or do we say, no, the logic, once the cast isn't a chatzitza, we treat it like your body, and now the crud is a problem. That actually is an interesting debate in the poskim, that exact case. So I could understand that that's Rava's question, not the way the Gemara reframed it. I got a grease spot here and a blood spot here. No, I got a blood spot, which isn't a chatzitza because I'm a butcher, and I got a grease spot riding on top of it. Okay, do I have to worry about the grease spot, which isn't on my garment, but it is on my blood spot, which would make it parallel to the previous question. Anyway, it's not how the Gemara interpreted it. Okay,
Can I just
yes.
just before we wrap something up, I just wanted to The Marika and Shtifa, which we said is by oral korbanot or Rosh Hashanah, not by Koch and Kalim.
Right.
That is done where? Also in the Azara?
Yep.
It'd be the same place where the kibbutz is done, or is there like a special?
I don't know. Maybe they have a separate room, a separate zone. I don't know.
And we had that machloket for Rebbe and Chachamim. So the Marika b'Chamin and Shtifa b'Tzoni, and according to Chachamim, and Rebbe said, you need Hagala and then Rika and Shtifa. But the Chamim for the Chachamim, that's the same thing as Hagala for Rebbe?
Yeah. Okay. All right. So now we switch to, it's very interesting if you think about it, like now how these like recent prakim are being organized, okay? The whole initial beginning of the Masechet was about like what is the procedure for korbanot. It starts with types of invalidities, shalol lishmo, pigul, etc. Eventually, it gets around to kol Zevachim, to tell you where everything is brought, etc., etc. And then after we're done with the basic procedures and the invalidities, we start talking about other halachot. We have a mizbeach mekadesh. When stuff is put up on the mizbeach, does it get to stay there even if it doesn't belong there? That was the 9th parak, right? The 10th parak was about was kol hatadir, the ordering, right? And now we just finished the 11th parak, was dam chatos, was these special halachot about blood on a garment and special halachot there, cooking a chatos, absorbing a chatos, these things which are mostly said by chatos, but other than the blood thing, generalized, and special rituals around them. Okay, now it's Tvul Yom, and what this is about, although the header Tvul Yom might not make you think this parak is really dedicated to the dividing of the korbanot, which kohanim get to eat and get portions in the korbanot. And there's really two questions. One is, am I allowed to eat it? And the other is, I might be allowed to eat it, but do I get an equal portion? Like at the end of the day, they would divide it all up equally. So it could be if, my friend the Kohen, Michael here, if I'm a Kohen, we're all Kohanim, but because I was Tameh, whatever, we'll see what the case is. It might be that now I'm Tahor, I'm allowed to eat it. I'm Tahor now, Michael can share it with me, but I don't get an equal portion. I don't get any portion. That's the question. So there's a difference between when can Kohen eat it, okay? Basically, if you're not Tameh, you can eat it, okay? And when are you entitled to a portion? Okay, and that's what we're going to be looking at. Let's read the Mishnah. I'll get a question in a minute. I wanted to start with the Mishnah.
You want to comment?
Well, okay, what's your comment?
No, I was going to say, because you could have thought that, you forget about whether it's a mayor or not. Like, it should just be like a reward, like for, having someone in the case, let's say.
Right, so Michael is correct. A lot of the psukim say, and we're going to get to this in the Gemara, HaKohena mechatei ota yochlena. A lot of the psukim make it sound like if you did the avoda with this particular animal, then, you get to eat from this animal. Whereas Chazal, in a more democratic mood, understand it that it's sort of like tips. Actually, it's a perfect example, right? Many restaurants, I don't know if all restaurants, I guess not all, many restaurants is just you pool the tips and you divide it. It recognizes some people luck out that they get the $200 table or the $500 table and the generous tippers, and other people why should it be unfair, based on those? You just pool the tips and divide it. Others say, no, maybe you get a big tip because people, you do things to get big tips or who knows what. Okay, so the psukim sound like it's like each person gets the tips from their table, right? You're the Kohen who did the avoda, you're the one that gets that korban. And each person gets the korban of the one that they happen to do, whereas Chazal say you pool your tips and you divide them, So that's actually a very good point. Okay, so let's take a look at the Mishnah. Tvul Yom u'mechusar Kippurim. So these are people that are tamei during the day, but they will be tahor that night. Okay, I touched an aveil. I went to the mikvah. I can't eat korbanot until nightfall. Okay, or I had to bring a korban because I was, a nitzora, I guess, or a zov. I guess that'll be a better example, more common, some common. Okay, so it was a 7-day period. It ended with a korban, but I'm not tahor until nightfall. Okay, so during today, when they were doing the avoda, I was tamei. There's a big tosus to understand, is this really true by Mechusar Kippurim? Does a Mechusar Kippurim have to go to the mikvah the day he does his final korban, and is he tamei until nightfall? It certainly sounds like here that even after you bring your korban, you're tamei until nightfall. So there's a huge discussion. So here we were, I was tamei that day, but I'm tahor at night, at the end of the day, and I want to have some of this wonderful steak every day that you don't get to serve in the Beis HaMikdash every day as a Kohen. It's basically, 2 weeks out of the year, roughly is how it would average. And then on the regalim, okay, because they divided them up into houses. But this is my week, or this is my day, and I wanted to get that big steak barbecue that we're having tonight. Okay, no, you don't get a portion since you were not able to do the avodah in the day. If somebody wants to share their steak with you, because to hate, but you're not entitled to a portion. The basic halacha is, again, as we said, you don't have to do the avodah, but you have to be fit for having done the avodah during the day. Onain, nogea ve'eno nogea ve'eno makriv, or our guess is nogea ve'eno makriv. Okay, an onain can touch because you're not tamei if somebody's an onain, just lost a relative. Okay, but they're not allowed to bring the korbanot, and therefore, since they're not allowed to bring the korbanot in the person's state of aninut, eno cholek lechol le'erev, cannot eat that night.
That's
the simple ruling is, if you were not able to bring the korbanot that day, even if you're able to at night, you do not get a portion.
I mean, I would think that you'd be very worried, like, you're owning your tarot about you may have touched the dead body, especially if it's a relative that you're, sitting.
I guess we don't make that assumption.
Maybe that's why
we would assess it.
The other is anal again.
What? Maybe it's interesting. Balei mumim. Okay, now if somebody has a blemish of the Kohen on his body, bein balei mumim ovrim, bein balei mumim kvuim, whether it is a passing blemish, certainly it's right now something happened and you've got some bone out, whatever, something's disfigured, but it's going to heal or whatever the case might be, or whether broken bone, right, exactly, or it's just the way God created you. So in those cases, chokim va'ochlin, those are the exceptions to the rule. Even though they can't do the avoda, they get a portion. Now the Torah is explicit that a Baal Mum is allowed to eat from the korbanot. Okay, the chiddush of the Mishnah is that he gets a portion, even though he can't do the avoda. So he's an exception to the rule. And now the Mishnah says the rule, of which it just said the exception to it. Okay. First we clarified, but they can't do the avoda. And now, if you can't do the avoda, if you're not fit to do the avoda, you don't get a portion, except for the Baal Mum, which you just mentioned a second ago is the exception. Okay, but the rule is, other than the Baal Mum, if you're not fit for the avoda, you're not entitled to a portion. And by the way, don't say fine, but at least give me a portion of the leather. I want to go ahead and make myself a nice leather jacket. Nope, it's all one. If you're entitled to a portion of the meat, you're entitled to a portion of the leather. If not, not. Afilu tamei b'shat zrikat tamim v'tahor b'shat hekter chalavim, which is exactly, it's so funny. It's like all of this is just clarifying the rules that were true, that were clear from the cases above. Somebody that was tamei when the blood was thrown, and you're tahor at night. At night is when you burn the entrails. Okay, maybe the point is of the additional chiddush here is, even if in practice the entrails of this korban were not burnt until night, and you were tahor then at night, it doesn't matter. Once again, it all goes by the blood. Okay. The person who brings the blood of the shlamim, and very interesting, the Mishnah did not have the next words, that achelev, which undercuts its point. Okay, we're sort of literally bracketing. I love it. Normally we use bracketing as a metaphor. Here, literally, it's got brackets. Okay, we're bracketing the word chelev. It's hamakriv et dam hashlamim, the blood. Lo tiyesho kayamin lamana. You get that portion of the shlamim if you do the blood. Now again, you be makriv, we don't mean that you literally brought the blood. We're retranslating it as you were fit to bring the blood. But it's very fascinating that the whole point is, even though you could have participated in doing the emurim, but we're bracketing the second part of that, which says etachelev. Okay, and we're emphasizing the blood part of it. Let's take a look at the Gemara. We'll just start a little bit into the Gemara. Where do you know this from? This idea that you have to be fit in order to be entitled to a portion. Top of Tzadi Tel Aleph. Amrei Shlokish Shamakra. The pasuk says, "Hakohen amechateyota yochlena." The Kohen who does the chitui, who does the atonement with the blood or whatever, brings the korban, he gets to eat from it. Kohen amechatey yochal, shein amechatey eno ochel. Only if you did the avodah do you eat. If you don't do it, you don't eat. The klalahu? Is that really the rule? V'harei mishmar kula. What do you mean? Meaning this is exactly this shift from you get the tips of your table to where we're going to split it. Okay? It's not just the Kohen that did that korban gets to eat it from. The whole mishmar gets to do it. Everybody who worked that day. V'harei mishmar kula, the ein mechatin v'ochlin, that they do it. Now again, we're just saying that because we know that's the halacha. We don't have a pasuk that proves that, okay? So it's not literally limited to the person who does the avodah. It's that korban itself. So the Gemara says, fine. So that's our first exegetical chiddush and shift. Mechatei doesn't mean that you actually did the avoda. It means if you were fit for doing the avoda, then you get a portion of the korban. Okay, so that's principle number one. Okay, 1 minute, says the Gemara. A minor, we're going to learn later, that minors can't do the avoda, which says ish kachiv. They have to be an adult kohen to be fit for doing the avoda. But we are also going to learn that a minor is allowed to eat from the meat. So now we get to exegetical shift number 2. It's not literally the one who did it. That was number one. It's anyone fit for doing it. And it's not yochlena. The verse isn't talking about who eats from it, who's allowed to eat, but who is entitled to a portion of it. Okay? Ela ma yochlena yichalkena. Gets a portion of it. Okay? Got it?
Where's the yochlena?
It says hakohena mechateotat yochlena. Second line from the top. Okay? We're top of Tzadi Terem Aleph. Right? Okay, so two chidushim. The pasuk sound like you have to have done it, and only if you did it do you eat it. Although again, probably pshat of the pasuk is this yochlena yichalkena is probably pshat, right? Because other pasukim say kol zachar bechohanim yochalota. All male kohanim are allowed to eat it. So yochlena in the pasukim probably pshat is entitled to eat from it. I mean, there's a difference between permitted and entitled. Okay, I mean, if you think about it, right, we're not really shifting the word yochlena to mean yichalkena. We're shifting the word yochlena to mean not you are permitted to eat, but you're entitled to eat. Okay, so 2 points. Number one is you don't have to literally do it. You just have to be fit for doing it. And point number 2 is we're not talking about who's permitted to eat. We're talking about who's entitled to eat, who gets a portion. All right, so that's our general rule. If you're able to do it, if you're fit for doing it, you get a portion.
Right, but we said before, like the two yom they can't, they're able to eat, but just right.
They're able, exactly. They're not entitled, exactly. Okay, yichalkena roy lechitu cholek. If you're fit for doing the chitui, which is also the avod of the blood, you get a portion. She'ena roy lechitui. If you're not fit for doing the blood work, and even if you're going to be fit that night to do the emurim, eno cholek, you don't get a portion. So it's that pasuk hakohena mechatei yochlena that we say mechatei means fit for chitui, and yochlena means entitled to eat. That we learn if you're fit to do it, you're entitled to a portion. Now, how about the exception that's in the Mishnah that the Mishnah just glosses over? Hooray, balmum. What do you mean? We got an exception to this room. A coin with a blemish. The ain't a roy lechitui v'cholek. He can't do the avoda, and he gets a portion. Balmum achmana rabye. No. When the pasuk tells you that a balmum eats, it's also telling you basically that a balmum is entitled to a portion. Because now we're reading eat a lot, not just mean permitted to eat, but entitled to eat. So the pasuk that explicit, there's an explicit pasuk that says that a baal mum eats. Mina kadashim yochel. Okay, achel hamizbeach lo yavo ve'alamikdash lo yigash kimubo. Whatever the end. I'm not exactly getting it. Mina kadashim yochel, but he eats from the kodesh. So the pasuk is explicit that he's allowed to eat, and from this pasuk, kol zachar, all males. We're coming to say not only is he entitled, not only is he permitted, he's actually entitled. But now we got a question. Since the pasuk of entitled is from this generic kol zachar, what made us choose to read that about a baal mum and not read it about a guy that was, let's say, it's full yom, right? It's because if we were going to learn it from the pasuk by the baal mum that says he eats it, and to say when the Torah says a baal mum eats, it means he's entitled to eat. That's one thing. But if you're just going to tell me from this pasuk of kol zachar, why do you focus on a baal mum to include and not on the tful yom? So the Gemara says the aim of kol zachar the rabbos tful yom. Maybe it should include a kol yom. No, mistavra baal mum it makes more sense to include a baal mum. Shekain ochel, because the baal mum actually was able to eat during the day itself when the korban was being brought, and since he was what?
I mean, but
he can't be makriv, but he can eat. That's explicit in the psukim. So the baal mum was not completely shut out of the mikdash the day the korban was being brought. He was shut out of the avoda, but he was. Since anyway, we're talking here is about being entitled to eat, and when the korban was being brought, he was permitted to eat. Within the category of connected to the eating of this korban, the baal mum started off more connected because during the day the korban was brought, he was able to eat, whereas the tamei person was not. Okay, Adarabba says Gemara.
If he came tamei middle of the day, he was.
That's interesting, but then he would be allowed to eat that night. Actually, if he was tahor when the korban was brought, became tamei, went to the mikvah that night, he would get a portion of the korban he was tahor for. Okay,
so he actually be part of the portion.
Yeah, I'm pretty positive. Okay, anyway, Adarabba says the Gemara tvul yom ursa michsachazi. Okay, but a tvul yom, at least from the perspective of being able to be makriv, he's more in the category because come night he will be able to be makriv. Gemara says, okay. But Hashemiya halo chazi. That's tonight. That's not now. Now, at the critical moment when the blood is being thrown, who's more connected to this korban, the Baal Mum or the Tvul Yom? And the answer is the Baal Mum. The Baal Mum right now is permitted to eat this korban. He is somewhere more in the parsha, as we would say, and therefore, when it comes to entitled to eat at night, the Baal Mum is going to be entitled to eat. Okay, so it's interesting. I would have sort of said the fact that the Psukim explicitly underscore that the Baal Mum eats would have pushed us to say that therefore he's not only permitted but entitled. But the Gemara sort of says it from a logical perspective, because even when the korban is being brought, he's more fundamentally in the parsha. Okay, so we will pick up with this tomorrow.
Does this imply that the